Welcome back to Straight Talk with Abby. I'm your host, Abby, and today we're diving into one of the most requested topics from you guys, and that's body recomposition. If you've ever wondered whether you can actually build muscle and lose fat at the same time, or if you're tired of people telling you it's impossible, this episode is going to give you the real science behind what's actually achievable. I've been digging into the latest research lately, and I want to share what I've learned because honestly, a lot of what we've been told about body composition, it is outdated. We're going to talk about why your scale might be the worst way to track progress, what your hormones are actually doing behind the scenes, and the strategies that research shows actually work. So grab your coffee, your pre-workout, whatever you're drinking, and let's get into it. Let's start with some straight talk about what body recomposition actually is, because I see a lot of confusion about this online. Body recomposition, or recomp, as the fitness crowd calls it, is simultaneously building muscle while losing fat. It's not just weight loss and it's not just muscle gain. It's both happening at the same time, which means the scale becomes pretty much useless as a progress indicator. Now, I want to share some research that really opened my eyes to what's actually possible. A study published in the Strength and Conditioning Journal specifically looked at whether trained individuals can build muscle and lose fat simultaneously. What they found was fascinating. Not only is it possible, but the researchers identified specific conditions where it's most likely to occur. And that's going to be with beginners to resistance training or people returning after a long break from working out. And also those carrying excess body fat have the best shot at significant recomp results. What makes this research so important is that it challenges the old school thinking that you have to choose between building muscle or losing fat. The key is understanding that it is a slower process than if you focus on just one of those at a time. I learned this the hard way when I first started lifting seriously. I was so freaking focused on that number on the scale. I have been half of my life. I'm sure a lot of you have too. That I almost missed the incredible changes that were happening to my body. My clothes fit better. I was getting stronger every week. People were commenting on how I looked, but that scale barely moved for 3 months. I almost quit because I thought I was doing something wrong. The lesson: take progress photos, track your measurements, and pay attention to how your clothes fit. These are your real indicators of success, not some number on a piece of metal on your bathroom floor. Now, this brings us to something equally important that most people overlook when pursuing body recomposition. And I see this with so many of my clients, and probably a lot of you will be able to relate to this too. You're doing everything right, eating the same foods, following the same workout routine that used to work, but suddenly your body stops responding the way it used to. You're gaining fat in places you didn't even know fat could accumulate. Your recovery feels slower, and some weeks you feel like you could conquer the world in the gym, and other weeks you can barely get through a workout. You start questioning if you're doing something wrong, or if you're just not trying hard enough, or if you might even start coming to the conclusion that, you know what, I'm getting older. This is just the way it is now. But then you learn about hormones, or if you didn't, you're going to now, and everything else starts to make sense. Your hormones are like the behind the scenes directors of your body composition. They're deciding where you store fat, how efficiently you build muscle, how well you recover, and even how motivated you feel to work out. And most of us are completely unaware of how much they're influencing our results. Let's start with something every woman can relate to. Have you ever noticed that some weeks you feel unstoppable in the gym And other weeks, you feel like you're lifting weights underwater. That's not in your head. That's your cycle. Because during the first half of your cycle, estrogen, it's rising, which can actually help with muscle protein synthesis. You might find you can lift heavier, recover faster, and feel more energetic. But in the second half, when progesterone takes over, your body temperature rises, your heart rate increases, and you might feel more fatigued during workouts. I used to be so hard on myself and beat myself up for having bad training weeks, not realizing my body was literally going through hormonal shifts that affected my performance. Now, once I started tracking this and putting all it together, I could plan my hardest training sessions for when my body was primed for them and be gentler with myself during the times when my hormones were working against me. But this goes way beyond just monthly cycles because research published in JCI Insight looked at what happens to women's bodies during perimenopause and menopause. What they found was that women can gain an average of 1.5 pounds per year during this transition, and most of it goes straight to the midsection, right for that fupa. And even if their diet and exercise habits don't change at all. This isn't about willpower or discipline. This is about estrogen declining, which affects insulin sensitivity, changes where your body prefers to store fat, and can even impact how well you build and maintain muscle mass. And for my guys out there, before you think this doesn't apply to you, your testosterone levels start declining by about 1% per year after age 30. Now, that might not sound like much, but over a decade, that's a 10% drop. And lower testosterone doesn't just affect your ability to build muscle, it can increase your fat storage, especially around your belly, reduce your motivation to exercise, like you needed that to happen, and slow down your recovery. I have male clients who come to me just so frustrated because they're doing the same workouts they did in their 20s, but their bodies aren't responding in the same way. They're not weaker or lazier. Their hormonal environment has just changed. The game changer for me and for many of my clients has been learning to work with these hormonal patterns instead of fighting them. For women, this might mean scheduling your heaviest lifting during the first half of your cycle and then focus on cardio or lighter sessions during the second half. It might mean being a little more flexible with your nutrition goals during PMS when cravings are a little bit stronger. For men, it can mean prioritizing sleep and stress management even more as you age because both directly impact testosterone levels. It might mean being more patient with muscle building progress and understanding that recovery takes longer than it used to. The bottom line is this: body recomposition isn't happening in a vacuum. Your hormones are either working with you or against you. And understanding this can be the difference between frustration and success. Speaking of working with your body rather than against it, there's another counterintuitive finding from recent research that might surprise you. And hear me out. Sometimes eating more can actually help with body recomposition. I know it sounds backwards, but the research backs this up. The fascinating research on protein overfeeding shows when people consume significantly more protein than the standard recommendations, we're talking about 2 grams per pound of body weight, something interesting happens. Their metabolic rate increases, meaning they burn more calories throughout the day. The study, published in the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition, put participants in a metabolic chamber to precisely measure their energy expenditure. When people consumed very high amounts of protein, their bodies had to work much harder to process it, leading to increased calorie burn throughout the day. That's a win. We like that. What makes this even more interesting, this only works when the extra calories come from protein and when it's combined with resistance training. It's not a free pass to eat everything in sight that has protein in it. Another study published in the Journal of the International Society of Sports Nutrition looked at what happens when resistance trained individuals consume 4.4 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight. That's roughly double the typical recommendations. The results here showed improvements in body composition even when total calories were higher than normal. So what this means for you is that being afraid of eating too much protein might actually be holding back your results. Your body uses a significant amount of energy just to digest and process protein. It's called the thermic effect of food. And guess what? Protein has the highest thermic effect of all macronutrients. So if you've been under eating protein because you're afraid of going over your calorie target, you might want to reconsider. Those extra protein calories might actually boost your metabolism enough to support your body recomposition goals. But protein intake, it's just one piece of the puzzle. The type of training you do is equally crucial for body recomposition success. So let's dive into the training strategy that moves the needle, because this is where a lot of people go wrong with body recomposition goals. They think they need to do hours of cardio to lose fat and hours of weightlifting to build muscle, essentially doubling their time in the gym. That's not necessary, and it's actually counterproductive. The research is clear. Resistance training should be your foundation for body recomposition. It is the only form of exercise that directly stimulates muscle growth while also creating a significant metabolic demand that supports fat loss. But let me share some research that might change how you think about cardio and fat loss. A systematic review and meta-analysis published in the Journal of Functional Morphology and Kinesiology looked at fasted versus fed exercise for weight loss and body composition. What they found, it was fascinating to me. While fasted exercise does increase oxidation during the workout, this doesn't necessarily translate to greater fat loss over time. When researchers looked at the big picture, including what happens in the hours and days after exercise, the differences in total fat loss between fasted and fed training were minimal. Another study in the Journal of the International Society of Sports Nutrition specifically examined body composition changes and found that when total calories and macros were controlled, both fasted and non-fasted groups saw similar improvements. Now, this tells us something important, and that is your body is incredibly adaptable. What matters more for body recomposition isn't the timing of your meals around exercise, but the consistency and intensity of your training. The biggest mistake I see is people adding more and more exercise when they're not seeing results fast enough. More is not always better. Sometimes you need to take a step back and ask, am I recovering properly? Am I sleeping enough? Am I managing stress? These factors can make or break your body recomposition efforts. My recommendation, focus on 3 to 4 resistance training sessions per week with 1 to 2 moderate cardio sessions if you enjoy them. Quality over quantity always. This approach requires something that's become increasingly rare in our culture, and it's probably the most important factor for long-term success. And when I say long-term success, it also involves that dirty little word that a lot of our society has forgotten about it. And that word, my friends, is patience. Body recomposition requires a level of patience that most people aren't prepared for in our instant gratification world. We live in a culture of quick fixes and 30-day transformations, but real body recomposition, my friends, the kind that creates lasting changes, takes 6 months to a year or more. And that timeline can vary dramatically based on your starting point, genetics, lifestyle, and obviously the adherence to your plan. I see so many people give up after 6 to 8 weeks because they're not seeing the dramatic changes that they expected. But if you look at the research on muscle growth rates, beginners can realistically gain 2 to 4 pounds of muscle per month under optimal conditions, while more experienced lifters might see 1 to 2 pounds per month. Fat loss, when done properly to preserve muscle, typically happens at 1 to 2 pounds per week. What's even more challenging is that these two processes don't always happen at the same pace. You might build muscle faster in your first few months and then see more fat loss in months 4 to 6, or vice versa. And this is why the scale becomes such a poor indicator of progress. So this is where we need a serious mindset shift. Instead of asking, how fast can I get results? Start asking, how can I make this sustainable for the long term? Because the person who can stick with a good plan for a year will always, and I mean always, beat the person who follows a perfect plan for 2 months. The magic happens in the mundane daily action. The workout you do when you don't feel like it, that protein-rich meal when you'd rather have takeout, the full night's sleep when there's a good show on Netflix. Now, before I give you the action plan about putting this all together, I want to also address something I get asked about constantly, and that's the topic of supplements, because there's a lot of misinformation out there. Supplements are exactly what their name suggests. They're supplement to a solid foundation of nutrition and training. They don't create magic, and they definitely don't replace the fundamentals. That said, there are a few that can genuinely support body recomposition efforts when used correctly. Creatine monohydrate is probably the most researched and effective supplement for supporting muscle growth and strength gains. I'm a huge fan. Also, a high-quality protein powder can help you meet your protein targets conveniently. But all those fancy fat burners, testosterone boosters, and muscle building stacks, save your money. The supplement industry preys on people who want shortcuts, quick hacks, selling hope in a bottle for premium prices to create an expensive pee. The supplements that actually work are boring. It's protein powder, your creatine, maybe a multivitamin if your diet is lacking. I'm personally also a fan of pre-workout and branched-chain amino acids, but there's nothing magical about any of these if you're not doing the other things. They're just one piece of the puzzle. Focus on your energy and budget on quality food, good sleep, and consistent training. That's where the real magic happens. With all this research and information in mind, let me now give you a practical roadmap that you can start following today. Step number 1, and probably the most important, set realistic expectations. Based on the research we've just discussed, aim to lose a half to 1 pound of fat per week while gaining 1 to 2 pounds of muscle per month. Progress will be slow, but sustainable. Step number 2, prioritize resistance training 3 to 4 times per week. Focus on compound movements and progressive overload. Track your workouts and aim to gradually increase weight, reps, or sets over time. Step number 3, eat adequate protein. Aim for about 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight to keep it easy, but don't be afraid to go higher based on the overfeeding research we discussed. Don't be afraid of going slightly over your calorie target if those extra calories come from protein. Step number 4, be patient with the scale, but diligent with other measurements. Take progress photos every week, body measurements, and track how your clothes fit. These will show progress even when the scale doesn't. Step number 5, work with your hormones, not against them. Pay attention to how your energy and recovery fluctuate throughout the month and adjust your training intensity accordingly. Step number 6, prioritize recovery. Aim for 7 to 9 hours of sleep, manage stress through whatever methods work for you, and don't underestimate the power of rest days. And finally, give yourself at least 6 months of consistent effort to see significant changes. This isn't a sprint, it's a marathon. So this wraps up today's deep dive into body recomposition. I know this approach isn't as flashy as the 30-day transformation promises you see everywhere, but I'm telling you, it's what actually works for lasting change. The fitness industry makes money by keeping you confused and constantly searching for the next hack, the next quick fix, the next big thing. But the real transformation, it's built on consistency, patience, and smart training choices. If this episode gave you some clarity, I'd appreciate you sharing it with someone who could use a reality check about their fitness goals. And make sure you're following me on all my social platforms where I share the day-to-day reality of building a strong, healthy body. Link is in the show notes. Your body's going to change on its own timeline, not Instagram's timeline. Every workout matters, every good meal choice matters, even when you can't see it happening yet. Trust the process and stay consistent. Thanks for listening to Straight Talk with Abby. If this episode hit you where you needed it, here's what I want you to do. First, share this with someone who needs to hear it. Transformation is contagious, and you never know who's waiting for exactly this message. Second, if you're ready to stop starting over and start becoming the unstoppable version of yourself, I've got something for you. My audiobook, Your Breakthrough Era, Unstoppable Starts Here, is now available on Audible, iTunes, and Amazon. It's the deeper dive into everything we talk about here. And if you're ready to go all in on your fitness transformation, check out my program, Unstoppable 2.0, my 12-week program that combines fitness, mindset, and identity work to help you become who you're meant to be. You can find all the details at yourfitnesscheck.com. Remember, your breakthrough era doesn't start when you feel ready. It starts when you decide you're ready. I'll see you next time for more Straight Talk. Until then, keep breaking through.